What's next?
Sex.
I'm for that. How are you going to get into that?
I don't know. You know, cavemen trying to figure it out.
Really?
Something like that.
I don't think they invented it.
We're headed into the 6th frame. I'm working on a perfect game.
Good, you're all here.
I'll tell you later.
Sorry I'm late. Well, to start with, Leonard from the shop is sending us over a new prototype. He thinks he has a breakthrough on the Rolly-Do-Whatchamacallit project. One of the R&D boys came up with the idea of adding a 5th side. They're testing it this afternoon. But we still have to solve the big problem.
Yes.
Our population continues to plummet. Now, I know that we've learned that playing practical jokes on the pterodactyls doesn't help. But obviously, we need to make new cavemen. The question is how?
I have an idea. We make cavemen out of rocks.
Oh, yes? Go ahead.
Well, you shape them to look like a man, use moss for the hair, and...
Okay. How do you get them to move?
I haven't figured that out yet. Maybe if we had some water or something.
Men,
Bacon.
it's the Mesolithic age. We've domesticated the dog, for crying out loud.
Right.
We'll do anything.
Yes, we can.
Cleo, how long has this been here? Strange. It's from my wife. Here. I ordered this from Jungle's End. I wanted you to see it as soon as it arrived. I hope you can bring it home right away. I can't wait to try it on for you.
Idea.
Men, I'll be back soon. Later. I have no idea how long this is going to take. But Gorgonda, you can put away the rocks.
You know, there are three reasons for sexual intercourse in the Bible. We typically only talk about 2. And I want to give them in sort of ascending order from the least to the most. You know, to produce, you know, to have children. That's a reason for it. But the next one, which I think is higher than that and celebrated in the Bible, is for pleasure. We got, you know, Song of Solomon, the book of Proverbs, and the writer of Hebrews says the marriage bed is undefiled, and God wants us to enjoy each other sexually. But the ultimate purpose of sexual intercourse in the Bible, the ultimate purpose is a celebration of our oneness in the sight of God. Every time a couple has sexual union, they're saying that I am a one-woman man, or I am a one-man woman, and I am committed to you and you alone for the rest of my life. I am you and you are me. And that's the celebration that takes place.
God created sex. And God didn't call everything very good until he had created the physical union between a man and his wife. So Hugh Hefner didn't create sex. God did.
God had given Adam certain equipment, certain drives that would only make certain sense if used in a certain way. That's not sexually explicit, that's just biology.
God could have designed Adam to subdivide as an amoeba, but he doesn't. He chooses someone who's like him, but different from him. And when they are coming together, there is an organic unity that is taking place. There's a new organism that is taking place in the act of marital union. And so something really significant is happening there that can happen in no other place.
I don't think God in heaven is frowning or embarrassed, hiding his face from what takes place in the marriage bedroom. The Proverbs are clear. He commanded them. He said, let her breast satisfy you at all time. Be exhilarated with her love. And it was the idea of sex and marriage. Again, a book in the Bible was dedicated to passionate love in marriage. In fact, there are a number of components of passion in marriage that are outlined in the book of Song of Solomon that just point out God wants us to make passion and pleasure in our marriages a priority.
Do you want to switch off? Yeah.
This is a wife.
How beautiful are your feet in sandals, oh prince's daughter.
My beloved is dazzling and ruddy, outstanding among 10,000.
Among these thousands of people, all right, so my beloved stands out among these people. Yes. Please help me out here.
His head is like gold, pure gold. His locks are like clusters of dates, and black as a raven.
Clusters of dates and black as a raven. I don't know. The guy has black hair, black curly hair.
The curves of your hips are like jewels, the work of the hands of an artist.
His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk and reposed in their setting. So they're very white. I'm great at analyzing poems.
Your navel is like a round goblet which never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is like a heap of wheat fenced about with lilies.
Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle.
Gazelles? That's my line.
I think it's romantic. Yeah.
His cheeks are like a bed of balsam.
Banks of sweet-scented herbs. His hips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh.
Liquid myrrh. Well, his lips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. That's a prime one.
Your neck is like a tower of ivory.
Your eyes like the pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim.
Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which faces towards Damascus.
Means that I have no idea.
His hands are rods of gold set with beryl.
His abdomen is carved ivory inlaid with sapphires.
Your head crowns you like Carmel.
I thought it was caramel. That would have been better.
And the flowing locks of your head are like purple threads.
The king is captivated by your tresses.
His legs are pillars of alabaster set on pedestals of pure gold.
His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars.
How beautiful and delightful, how delightful you are, my love, with all your charms.
Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters.
I say, I will climb the palm tree. I will take hold of its fruit stalks.
His mouth is full of sweetness, and he is wholly desirable. I agree with that point.
Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of wine, and the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine.
This is my beloved.
This is my beloved, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem.
She just won me over. Did you guys write this?
Where do I think it comes from?
Short story.
I'm thinking like, Greek mythology. Yeah.
I think that's very sexual, and I like it.
This sounds like something comes out straight out of Twilight. Is it from the Bible? I don't know. Like, I think it's Jerusalem. I don't know.
It was just like biblical stuff. You had to be pretty old and crazy to come up with something like that.
It's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to see God not be afraid to address anything.
when he talks in Song of Solomon, and you hear the expression, and you hear the passion, and you hear the intimate description of the detail and the touching and what I think about it and what your breasts are. I mean, you hear these very sensual passages, but it reminds you of just how wonderful and how great a gift sex is to a relationship.
I think the Song of Songs is a glorious book. I mean, what a brilliant idea for God to put that in the canon to inspire married couples for what can be.
My goal is to see that Cindy has a sexually wonderful marital experience. Her goal is to see that Michael has a wonderful, sexually fulfilling sexual experience. That's your goal. Your goal is not some Hollywood nonsense, but it's how do I help her have a wonderful experience with this, is safe, lovely, profound, emotional, exhilarating, and vice versa. And to enjoy the relationship based around that, not just the event of the orgasmic experience or the climax of the physical event, but all that led up to it and all that happens afterwards. And I think when couples can start getting that in their head instead of all this other noise, you move away from just using your wife as a vessel to release your anxiety and pent-up frustration, and vice versa, or to frustrate each other and control. Well, no sugar tonight in your coffee. You know, you've hurt my feelings. Forget you, that's just sin. That's all it is.
The sexual union ought not to be seen as a favor that someone is doing for someone else, nor ought it to be seen as an entitlement that someone is demanding from someone else. If in a marriage there is a reluctance toward sex, then something else is going on.
Many couples never talk about their sexual needs. But the husband and wife got to say, okay, this is what I expect. This is what I would love. This is what I would enjoy. This is my frequency. This is where I want to do it. You know, we got to talk through those things because it's important to know what does your spouse need. And then let's honor that and not give in. And then talk about how do I save energy for that, okay? If we're supposed to have sex two times a week, but I'm tired all the time, so how can you help lighten my load? Can you pick up the kids? Can you do the laundry? Can you cook? So that I can be ready for you at 9, 10 o'clock, okay? So it's a balance of us finding out how can we save energy to enjoy each other sexually.
The ultimate calling of me in sexuality is not first my pleasure, because that would distort sexuality, because I'm using you for my pleasure. It's not even your pleasure, because we may please one another in ways that are an abomination to God. The ultimate pleasure I must pursue is the pleasure of God. That God would be pleased by everything we do in that relationship.
Sexual intimacy doesn't happen automatically. This isn't the moment in which the music starts playing and the script carries itself out. Instead, sexual intimacy means getting to know one's husband or wife, which often takes a long time.
I didn't realize when I got married at 23 how a woman's body worked and how long it took her to reach that point that takes a man, about 20 seconds.
I was like, man, I'm doing all I can do. I'm giving out all I can give out.
She just ought to know that I'm in the mood all the time.
He would get frustrated or maybe a little short with me, but I never connected to the dots that he was short with me because he was frustrated in the sexual part of our marriage. There's just that tension that's there. You know it needs to be broached, you know it needs to be talked about, but that tension's there that just says, oh, maybe now's not the right time.
It was the elephant in the living room. We talked around it. We kind of used little, I'll give you a little hint and you try and pick up on that. And we were just missing on that level. And it wasn't satisfying to her. As hard as it was to broach that subject, when I did, then it was just like the dam broke and then we were able to get out all those feelings. And the Lord just blessed that.
I sensed a real difference in his heart when he started this conversation, and as a result, it just opened me up to feel free to just really express myself as well.
That just brought us to a new depth in our relationship, a new level of intimacy and trust, and hey, everything's out in the open.
From that point on, we learned to continue to communicate in that way and to continue to learn about each other and to grow and to read books and just to explore different areas. And it was just a turnaround in our sexual relationship.
When I knew that she looked forward to that too and that it was enjoyable for both of us, it just made everything better. It made me feel so much better about things, about us, and it just took our marriage to a new level.
I remember when I was getting married, the one area that I thought I'd have no problem in is in the bedroom.
Right on.
I thought, this is gonna be smooth as butter. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
It was more like the butter had been sitting in the fridge for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think things like I thought the sex shop was open 24/7.
Yeah.
I thought this thing is just gonna be what I want, she should want. What I thought would be one of the most rewarding things became and can become a struggle.
You're right, and I was like you, thinking sex would be easy in marriage because I had been sexually active prior to marriage. And when I came into the marriage relationship, because of my past, there were some challenges, and thank God for his grace and forgiveness, but it's a work in progress.
We actually did wait before we got married, and it still wasn't all that I thought it would be.
Well, it's so connected to every part of your life. What's happening in your life is gonna impact your relationship in the intimate part of your life as well. So
I think our struggle has been having young children and having children at different ages. We have a 10-year-old, we have a 7-year-old, and then we have a 2-year-old. And so for the last 10 years, we've been taking care of children, and by the time we get them down for bed and get the kitchen cleaned up and we've helped with homework.
forget the kitchen.
Just,
I'm just saying.
I have to have my kitchen clean.
Years,
No,
Chris.
my
You've been
kitchen
saying it
has
for
to be
years.
clean.
Forget it.
There will be no sex without a clean kitchen.
Bro, wait, let me change my statement. Clean the kitchen.
Yes, thank you. There you have it. Yeah,
I know that feeling.
Yes.
Great sex begins in the kitchen.
That's right.
But see, I didn't think that it meant clean the kitchen. I thought that was a location.
Washing dishes is great foreplay. Yeah, but the foreplay starts in the morning. That's for sure.
That's a whole new teaching.
That's
Doing
right.
the dishes.
Yeah.
No, my
have to work
kitchen's
on
clean
that.
every night before I go
Oh,
to
I
bed.
know, I
you
know.
There's
Yeah.
a reason for that. I agree. I'm with you.
It's like, I always said, Bill, how would you like it if I came to your office and jumped on your desk and said, hey, let's have sex? And he goes, oh, I'd love it. So one day, that's what I did. I went to his office and I jumped up on his desk and said, hey, let's have sex. And he's like, Pam, what are you doing? No, we can't do that. Get out of here. I said, okay, well, that's how I feel when we come to the marriage bed and I'm tired, exhausted from having all these little kids, and I just want to go to sleep, and then I feel the hand move over, and then I feel the hand touch me. And in places I really don't want to be touched right then, and so it's just like, stop. Stop. Okay, just stop a minute. You haven't even connected with me emotionally today. So he'll sit up in bed and he'll go, well, what do you want to talk about? I really just close my eyes to say, God, I just want to give you my attitude right now, because sex is really not what I want. I want to just go to sleep. But Lord, I'm just going to yield my heart to you and just ask that you would work in this area. And so, you know what? It's really amazing, because then as my husband and I would have sexual intimacy, it brings you closer, and as it brings you closer, it opens up the man to be willing to talk about the things that maybe before sexual intimacy he wasn't willing to talk about. And I find that really that I was fulfilled in being able to just have that sexual intimacy together. And it's really been an incredible area of growth in our marriage relationship.
For years, we used to take a nap on Sunday afternoon. Our kids, I think our kids thought it was in the Bible. You had to take a nap on Sunday. Because it was like, we did it every week, because that was at least one time in the week when we knew we could make some time.
And even when the kids were too old to really sleep during this afternoon nap time.
I was going to say, I was wanting some clarification on that.
It's just quiet time for you. You can go in your room, you can read, you can play. Dad and I are so tired. We have got to take a nap. Every Sunday is quiet time. It's Sunday afternoon. Sunday is for worship and for rest. And Dad and I are so tired, we have got to take a nap.
We need to have some worship.
So they could read, that's right. We had a worship service of our own.
I think what sabotages sex, I know for most of us guys, it comes back to pornography. It comes back to all the cheap substitutes. And we've raised ourselves, and especially in our culture today, where it's so accessible by a mouse click, or it's just so easy to get into. And what it trains us to do is to think that it's immediate.
Well, I'm probably like every guy that had a friend who introduced him to the whole pornography world, and my friend was Larry, who lived across the street. What pornography did in my life was it introduced me to the fine activity of self-stimulation. And it was kind of interesting, because as a young believer, I would read in the Bible, and I didn't see anything about thou shalt not do this. So I kind of concluded, well, it's not there, it must be okay. And I chose to ignore all the red flag signals, you know, the guilt that went with that, and the fact that, man, I didn't want anybody catching me doing this, my parents, for heaven's sakes, or anybody. It was just my little secret. And I figured, well, when I get married someday, you know, my wife will take care of that need for me. Got married, and lo and behold, something interesting happened. It didn't go away. I carried into my marriage that same deception, and the lie that I lived under was, as long as she doesn't know about it, it's not hurting anybody. I don't know, it was just this demon in my life that was constantly there, and I would battle it, and I'd do okay for a couple of weeks and be fine, but then something would come along. I mean, especially in the years where we were having kids and stuff, or Julie was pregnant, you know, I rationalized all sorts of different things in my life to just say, well, it's okay, you know, I'm thinking about her when I'm doing this. But if I'd really been honest, I would have said, what are you thinking about her? You know, is this extolling her and holding her up with honor, or is this just you using her? One day, Julie and I had a very interesting conversation, and we got candid with each other, and eyeball to eyeball with my wife, I confessed this, and she said two things to me that I'll never forget. She said, Bruce, it's like you got a mistress in this relationship. And then she said, what's the deal? Am I not good enough for you that you got to do that? And it was a hard conversation. It was all it took for me at that point to say, you know what, Julie, I don't ever want to do this to you again. And in fact, I told her, I said, Jewel, if I blow it, you're going to be the first one to know about it. And I'm telling you, that became powerful motivation for me, because every time I was tempted, you know, to go there, this little voice in my head said, Bruce, do you really want to have that conversation with Julie? Was I still tempted? Absolutely. But boy, every time I thought, no, I don't want to go there. I think that there's a real deception that goes on here. When Jesus said that you even look on a woman to lust for her, you're committing adultery. You're violating the very thing that I intended for this thing, which I intended to be a representation of a union between God and me, the most intimate relationship you can have. And here you are desecrating this thing. I can't rationalize. I can't make that work with Scripture the way that I see it. And so don't minimize this. Don't live under the lie that it's no big deal.
You know, as athletes, many of us have played ball, you know, we get in the locker room and we get information about sex that has nothing to do with truth or reality. And then we have to process that and work through that once we get married and make it work in a way that's more accurate in terms of what the Bible says. And we had a coach. He would bring us over to his home. We would go in his basement and he would dump all of these magazines out for us, and we would flip through them. And I had no idea at the time the damage that was doing to my mind in terms of images that was seared into my mind, and how that would be brought into my marriage relationship, and how I would have to work through that in order to achieve intimacy with Donna. And so I think, again, incorrect information can really hinder achieving intimacy.
Which opens up another can of worms, because many times it's that pornography which leads to sexual abuse and violence, and many of the, you know, we have family members that have been sexually abused, and the damage and the pain that causes, and the years, not that God can't do a great work in restoring.
It takes a lot to work through.
It takes a lot to work through.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about it, so they never go and seek the help that they need. Most women don't. Because they're embarrassed about what happened. I mean, you know, you just don't want to talk about those kinds of things. You feel like you were the one that was wrong.
I, as a little girl, experienced some sexual abuse. I was only 5. We lived in an apartment complex outside of Washington, D.C., and there was a big playground in the back of our apartment complex, and we were getting ready to go somewhere as a family, and I just went outside in the swings and in the playground and just was having a good time, when a neighbor gentleman sort of motioned to me from his back door and asked me if to come closer and and he had a question for me. And you know, being 5, you're innocent, you're unsuspecting, you don't expect any evil or danger, and I just sort of skipped over to his back door, and he ushered me into his door, and he said he wanted to show me something. And it was inside that door and inside that room that I experienced some sexual abuse. As you approach marriage and you get into a sexual relationship in marriage, then things begin to surface and you begin to remember. Even the slightest bit can affect you. I did not address that early in my marriage. I just sort of buried it and figured I'll be fine. It's not going to be a big deal, not a big deal. But it did affect my marriage. When I talk to other women who have experienced sexual abuse, especially some that have been gone on for years and years, and with people that they loved and trusted at one time, there's just so much pain, and tears just flow and stream from their eyes, and the pain that you see in their lives just tears your heart apart. They carry still the pains of those memories.
You know, it's so apparent there's so much of this in our society today, and we don't realize what the net effect is in our own bedrooms. Because I think the statistics are 1 out of 6 people have been sexually abused. Now, that doesn't mean rape or intercourse has taken place, but some touch, a look, a flash. I mean, there are so many things that creates those pictures in the mind that when you're in your bedroom and you're in your intimate moments, you can have those flashbacks, and it's a work of the Spirit and a dependence on Him to get us through those times and continue to make things new.
You guys talked about bad information that you get sometimes through the locker room, pornography, and that.
for us women, I don't think we typically get information that way, but our misinformation comes through like magazines, thinking we have to have this perfect body image, that we have to stay a perfect size 2 to be attractive or, you know, sexy for our husbands, or you know, through romantic things. You know, you think when you get married and he's going to sweep you off your feet. I think that's where a lot of our misinformation comes from. And then we talk about, you know, raising kids. A lot of times there's not enough, you know, there's that romance is not there. And so for us women, you know, we kind of have this stuff locked in our minds, and that's, you know, can be kind of a, I guess, a source of frustration, you know, for us, because we hear over here it's supposed to be this wonderful romantic thing, and then, you know, here you are trying to keep a 2-year-old from knocking on the door saying, Mommy and Daddy, what are you doing?
Reality.
So you're trying to say that I'm not romantic?
I think that basically is what she's saying there, Raven.
But I've had a lot of conversations with women who say, you know, I wish my husband wanted me like that. I wish he was interested in me. And more, I'm having these kind of conversations where it's the woman that's more sexually interested and the husband is not.
It could be purely physical. You know, I think it can be sort of frustrating to be watching a football game with your 11-year-old daughter and have to explain what a 4-hour erection means, right? Because of the commercial that comes on. But it actually is, I think it is a very positive thing that in our culture, at least, you can talk about the fact that there may be some sexual dysfunction and talk to your doctor about that.
Let's talk about sex.
Yeah. Okay, you ready? The big O. We've had a lot of children in our life. As a matter of fact, 12 children. So when some people look at me, they think, oh, she is some sexual machine. I mean, 12 kids. Can you believe it? And I just want to say, you know what? That's not true. I don't know if it's because of all the pregnancies or just the way that I was made up, or because I just didn't have a sexual mind that I really thought about sex, or what, but it was really over 10 years before I had an orgasm. I'd have this one friend and she'd say, Pam, I hold my husband's hand and I have an orgasm. I'm like, what? I don't even know what an orgasm is. And I'd like to say to men, if you didn't have an orgasm for 10 years, how interested would you be in having sex? Probably not very. As a woman, when you've got small children, you just kind of want to get the sexual act over with, and so you're not really into foreplay. You're just like, let me just please my husband and then we can go to sleep. And so I think that it's the part of the husband saying, okay, this is something we're gonna work on. And Bill met somebody who said, you know what, I don't ever have sexual intimacy that I don't work at trying to bring my wife to an orgasm. And so I think that was something that helped him realize, you know, that this was a part that he needed to be working on for me as well.
I have found in 34 years of practice that a large percentage, I can't put a number on it, but I would say it may be as high as 20 to 25% of women perhaps have never experienced orgasm. But there's a reason for that. So if you would allow me, let me talk to you now as if I were your family physician. It's so important that we understand that much of the cause of our wives not reaching orgasm is related to us and how we approach them from a sexual intimacy standpoint. From an anatomical, from a biochemical standpoint, essentially we're all sexually neutral. And we have this curve that we have to go up, and it has to follow. It's a cause and effect curve in that we have neutrality, and the first thing then we begin to have is desire, and then as we move up that curve, we see arousal, and then we come to orgasm. Because of us, the way we're wired, because of the way God designed men, we can move up that curve very, very rapidly. But that's not true of our wives because more is involved. It takes a slow movement up that curve. We also, gentlemen, need to realize that God in His wonderful design made our wives very unique in the area of being able to respond sexual intimacy to the point of arousal, to the point of orgasm. And a lot of that is anatomically related in things that He has done with her body, somewhat oftentimes very different from our body. One is He has made areas of her body very, very sensitive For example, the earlobe is very sensitive. The caressing of the earlobe, the kissing of the earlobe. The nape of the neck, the back of the neck, very, very sensitive with caressing, with touching, with kissing. Obviously, the lips are very, very sensitive. But also, as we move down anatomically, the breasts are areas of sensitivity that help in the arousal, bring from desire to arousal. In fact, that brown area circling the nipple, it's called the areola, that has those little bumps. Husbands, I want you to think of that as braille. That says, touch me. That says, kiss me. That's part of bringing that arousal into focus and into play. Also, God has created our wives with a unique part of her anatomy, and it's called the clitoris. It's at the very top of the vagina. It's about the size of her little finger, the end of her little finger, and there are more nerve endings within her clitoris than in your entire penis. And the stimulation of the clitoris is key to her moving from arousal to the point of orgasm. And as part of the foreplay would be the touching, the stimulation of the clitoris. And one of the things, husbands, that you will find is the stimulation of the clitoris. It will begin to enlarge. It will begin to become engorged. It will actually almost develop like a buzz. It will begin to throb. And as that happens, you will also notice that her vagina will become more lubricated. It will actually begin to open up somewhat, because what it is it's now being prepared for that penetration. And if these steps are followed, where we move through desire to arousal, through the stimulation, and especially through the importance of the stimulation of the clitoris, you will begin to know when she's ready. And you'll sense certain things. Her breathing will become faster. It will become deeper. You may even be aware of her heart rate being somewhat faster. If you're not in a completely dark room, you will notice that there is a flush, especially of the upper body. It's almost like a little bit of a sunburn. Nipples will become very firm. These things have to take place in this sequence to move from that neutral area to the area of desire, then move up to the area of arousal. And as this takes place, then she will become, her body will become prepared for the ultimate part of sexual intimacy, that being orgasm.
Bill and I started reading books, and really I think the thing that made the major difference is we began to pray over our marriage bed, because going back to the scripture, because I believe what God says is true. And he said, he's the one ordained sex. I'm like, well, God, if you ordained sex, then I want to experience the really awesome parts of it. And so I just began praying, saying, God, would you bless our marriage bed? I want to experience everything that you have for us in this area. And so that was an area that we began to work on. We began to understand the importance of foreplay, the importance of a woman being able just to have some downtime away from the kids. It's really been an incredible area of growth in our marriage relationship, of something I'm really thankful for. And I have to say, I have experienced orgasms now, and that's pretty awesome. And it's an area that God has worked on in our life, and I just give him praise and glory. And my attitude towards sexual intimacy has really changed. And it's so true that as you get older and you work together and you get to know each other better, hey, I didn't even know what mutual orgasms were before, and now I do. Okay, so go with that. Where you want?
I think if you talk to many Christian couples and you got them to be honest, they would talk about the fact that they have a less than fulfilling, less than mutually satisfying sexual relationship. I don't think it's about sex. I think it's about relationship. If I've been selfish with you, if I'm easily irritated with you, if living with me is like walking on eggshells, then when you're naked next to me in bed, what are you expecting? You're not expecting this to be tender. You're not expecting me to serve you. You're not expecting me to be excited about your pleasure. You always drag the relationship into the marriage bed. And I'm convinced for most couples, you fix sexual dysfunction outside of the marriage bed, because God is actually employing that dysfunction as a barometer of other things that are wrong. It's a pain signal that there are things about the way that we treat one another that make this not work. And you think, we're getting a warning here.
Yeah, I think sexual problems are generally a symptom of another problem. I think sex is a byproduct of our intimacy. Again, a lot of people think that sex is our intimacy, but that's not the case. It's a byproduct of our intimacy. Intimacy happens when I let someone into an area of my life that's not readily available to everyone else. If I tell you my name and I tell you where I'm from, I'm not being intimate. But when I'm telling you things that are not for general consumption, that's when I'm beginning to be intimate. By the way, a little aside, that's where affairs begin. I love talking to you. I can tell you things I can't tell my wife. You just told that woman that you're hers and that the physical consummation is only yet to come. And so within the context of a marital relationship, oftentimes couples are not experiencing intimacy in their relationship, and the sexual relationship that is a byproduct of that and a fruit of that is kind of a lagging indicator.
Our orientation to marriage and to sexuality in particular is that I want to be moving towards you and I want to be available to you. And so the orientation is not the cultural one, which is, this is my body, stay away, I'll let you know when you can have access. And so it's a complete mind shift. It really is radical. And yet it's that radical scriptural approach that brings health to marriages.
30 seconds, guys.
Thanks, Heritol. Jeff is up first on line 3, Lisa on line 5.
And what's Jeff's issue?
The thrill is gone.
I know the feeling.
And by that you mean? I was exhausted. I mean, come
5 seconds, guys.
on. Oh, I know the feeling.
Oh, ha ha.
Solution for selective hearing.
We're back on Loveline Live with Drake and Cheryl, and Jeff is on line 3. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, love your show. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Jeff. We're glad to take it. What's on your mind?
Well, my wife and I have been married for 7 years. We have 3 kids, and it feels like in the last year, the fizzle has gone completely out of our sex life.
Did your wife say she's exhausted all the time?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, let me ask you, how much time do you give for the two of you together?
Not as much as it used to be. I'm traveling more for my job to help support our new baby.
Here's why I asked you about the time alone together. You're gone all week. Your wife is home alone with 2 kids, a new baby. She's exhausted. For a woman, Jeff, for her to be able to engage in the bedroom, she's got to feel like she's connected on a deeper level. And quite frankly, if she doesn't have that, well, it's not that surprising that she's not all that interested.
Jeff, as guys, we have to remember that sex is 3-dimensional. No, you don't have to wear those funny glasses. It's body, mind, and spirit. We tend to get that compartmentalized. Our wives sure don't. You have to carve out time to be together and then use that time to reconnect, soul to soul.
That is excellent advice. That can sometimes help a wife with her exhaustion. I mean, no guarantees, but...
No guarantees. That's true.
Okay, well, I'll give it a shot. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Lisa is up next on Loveline Live. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Drake.
Hello, Miss Lisa. What can we do for you?
Gosh, I never thought I would do this on a radio show, but okay, well, I don't know why, but lately I've just been freezing up when he starts to initiate,
Now, you said lately. Has this just started happening recently?
Yeah, maybe for a year now.
First marriage for both of you?
It is for me. He was married once before for about 3 years, but no kids.
Lisa, have you ever been concerned that your husband might leave you?
I don't think so. I mean, No, but we have been arguing a bit more than usual, and there are times when I go down to the gym and see these women working out, and I think, how long before one of them starts flirting with him and he just loses it?
Lisa, here's what I think is happening with you. You're experiencing doubts. Now, the ones you mentioned, they may seem like, oh, not a very big deal, but they could be exactly what's causing you to shut down physically.
Yeah.
Lisa, when a wife, or a husband for that matter, feels insecure about the core commitment in a relationship, about the permanence, that wife has a hard time giving herself freely and uninhibitedly to her man. She can't do that if she's thinking, I wonder if he's going to be here tomorrow or next week or next year.
What you need to do is settle this issue with your husband. You need to look each other in the eye and really get honest with each other. Like, re-embrace those words. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. You're stuck with me, right?
Right.
Lisa, hearing and knowing that kind of rock-solid commitment is just one key to a healthy sex life, and more importantly, to your marriage.
Thanks, guys.
Our pleasure, Miss Lisa. Well, that's our show, friends. I'm Drake Majors.
And I'm Cheryl Majors.
And this has been Loveline Live. Till then, sleep tight, and don't forget to say, I love you.
And we're clear. Good show, guys.
Hey, any doubts?
No, I thought it was pretty good.
I was talking to her.
No. No doubts. I know you're stuck with me, no matter how exhausted I may be from time to time.
And I guess you're stuck with me, even when I get a little cranky.
You? Cranky? All of a sudden, for some strange reason, I'm not tired at all. In fact, I'm wide awake.
Is that so? Well, look at me. Not cranky at all.
Ooh.
Meet Tommy and Susie. Tommy and Susie are newlyweds. And although they've already learned a little about sex, they still have a lot to learn about intimacy. Today, their teacher, Mr. Barker, is going to give Tommy and Susie a lesson in love. First, Mr. Barker explains that sex is like a thermometer, not a thermostat. He makes it clear that great sex is a way to measure a great marriage, not what causes it. Next, Mr. Barker makes sure that Tommy and Susie know that the best sex happens after you're married. He explains how their commitment to each other will help them feel safe and secure, and will make sex more special. And, Mr. Barker says, it's important that Tommy and Susie spend lots of quality time together, outside the bedroom. Don't worry, Tommy. You'll enjoy doing fun things with Susie, special things that cultivate a deeper relationship. That way, when it's time for sex, you're having sex with someone you already feel close to, your very best friend. Now, Mr. Barker explains that sometimes sex can become routine, even boring. When that happens, it'll be time for Tommy and Susie to get creative. Try new settings or fresh approaches to sex. Spice things up a bit, hey kids? And finally, Mr. Barker reminds Tommy and Susie of the importance of making sure there is real spiritual intimacy in their marriage. When they pray together, read their Bibles together, and share their love for Jesus with each other, it deepens their relationship and their love for one another. Now that Tommy and Susie know the elements of intimacy, they have all they need to pursue a lifetime of love together and a marriage filled with great sex. All you have to remember are these 4 elements: commitment, companionship, passion, and spiritual intimacy.